Hello everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Gaming in the Wild, a video games podcast about games from the artistic, creative side of the tracks, from indie to AAA. My name's John, I'm your host. This week in Reykjavik, the snow has finally cleared from the ground. It's been above zero. Today we had a little bit of blue sky and sun, so I actually went out for a walk. Very nice out here. Feels like we're finally turning the corner on the winter. But in terms of gaming, this has been a stacked week like I haven't had for a long time actually. It began when last week I came down with a case of the terrible flu. No COVID according to 3 home tests on different days, but a really bad flu, so I spent most of the time sleeping and didn't have much energy. But I also decided to start a new game, seeing as I was going to be stuck in the sofa, feeling kind of rough. And I played Cyberpunk 2077, speculatively opened it. I bought the game over the winter break when it was on half-price sale, so I got it for £20, with the full plan of playing it once the next-gen version came out. And the next-gen version was kind of sprung on us. It's version 1.5 of the game, and it was sprung on us at a very busy time, just a week before Horizon, 2 weeks before Elden Ring, which seemed like a strange time for them to do it to me, because it's just such a stacked time in the conversation. The wider gaming conversation is basically full and spoken for throughout that time from those really big games. But they released version 1.5, and I thought, okay, now's the time to try it. And try it I did. I got pretty fiercely addicted to the game, and I have rolled credits on one of the endings, and I'm looking forward to telling you all my thoughts about it, about the famously buggy nature of the game, but also the quite spectacular nature of it, and spectacularly successful nature of it in some aspects too. So that will be the featured game of the episode. But since rolling credits on Cyberpunk and doing lots of post-game on it, because I like it so much actually, I've also been shopping around for the next game I'm going to play. I've been trying out a few demos. I've been trying out a few promo codes that I got, and I've been kind of tearing through lots of different games actually. It's been pretty productive, prolific time for trying out new games. So I thought I would talk through a few of the games that I've tried out in the last week or so, or the last few days since finishing Cyberpunk, and just talk about them, because some of them are brand new, some of them are games that were recommended in the show's Discord, some are games that have been on sale. There's quite a wide selection here, so I'm gonna race through them a little bit, because I have a lot of notes on Cyberpunk, and this episode might go long, so I won't stretch this intro out. One of the first things that I played, it came to Game Pass, I've been waiting for it for a while, is Tunic, published by Finji, who did Chicory. And you've probably seen this one. It's an isometric, top-down, cute-looking, Zelda-ish, Death's Door-ish action-adventure game, in which you play a little fox in a little Link outfit, basically, with a little sword and a little shield that you pick up pretty soon after beginning the game. And you run around, you fight things, you solve puzzles, you figure out the map, you collect doohickeys and whatsits to open the gate of whatever, and all that sort of stuff. And I was quite looking forward to this one, because I love a good Zelda-inspired game. I love top-down cute games. I've always got a bit of a sentimental place in my heart for that kind of thing. I really enjoyed Death's Door. And so I started Tunic, and I have played an hour and a half or so of it, and I have to say this has been a little bit of a surprise for me. I note that it's done well on Metacritic. It has 85. People have generally responded well to the game. I personally found it to be a little bit harder than I was expecting. It's actually got quite I mean, people must get tired of hearing things being called Soulsy and Souls-likes, but it has got a very clear Dark Souls influence. There is dodge roll gameplay, there is blocking, parrying, you die in a couple of hits, you have 2 health flasks, you do corpse runs when you die, There are campfires where you save, and if you save, the enemies that you've killed come back to life. So it's got all of the trappings of Dark Souls, basically, which came as a big surprise to me. I was expecting like a cute, good time running around, and soon enough I realized I raised an eyebrow the first time I died and was like, wow, that guy hit hard. And then the second time, and then the third time, my eyes were popped open and I was like, wait a second, this is a Souls-like. So it's not exactly what I ordered, if you know what I mean, but I don't like to critique things for not being what I expected. I like to critique them on their own merits, and I haven't played much of Tunic. I will just say that it was a bit of a surprise to me that it was quite as challenging as it is, and so I slacked off it. It's not what I wanted. I was playing Elden Ring on the side a little bit, and what I was really looking for was something else, something to leave that difficult, traumatic Elden Ring gameplay aside, and so Tunic was not what I was after. I've put it to one side for now. So I'm not in love with that game, but I am planning to come back to it and give it a second swing later, and see if I'm in the mood for it then. Because sometimes when you play a game, you're just not in the mood for that kind of game, and it can really colour your playthrough, and then later you might really get into it. So Tunic is going onto my to-do list. I'm putting a pin in it for later. Something that actually is pretty much what the doctor ordered to play on the side of Elden Ring is Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Now, I've never played a Kirby game before, I realised, which may sound sacrilegious to some. I think I've maybe dabbled around in a Kirby game way back in the days of the Game Boy, but it's never been my thing for some reason. But watching the footage come out of this one, I got curious about it. It looked interesting to me. And so when the demo came out, I downloaded it onto my Switch and finally got around to playing it this week. And it's an interesting one. It's very cute. It's linear. I think because people saw that it has a 3D, post-apocalyptic, overgrown, reclaimed city setting, their minds straight away went to open world games like Last of Us, like Horizon, all that kind of thing. They were thinking, wow, it's an open world Kirby game, especially perhaps because of Mario Bowser's Fury, which sees Nintendo stepping into bringing their cute old game series into the 3D present. But it's not really. It's pretty linear from what I've played. You get an intro area and then 3 levels in the demo. And as Kirby, this pink blob with a big mouth that can suck things up and swallow them, and then use that to his advantage. So for example, you see a little sword-swinging knight, you suck him up and swallow him down, and then you get a sword, and you get a shield, and you get a little knight hat, and Kirby is in knight mode. You can then spit that ability out, and then suck down another, and so the whole game is about switching up abilities to become other things and take on the characteristics of, e.g. a car. In this game, Kirby can wrap his lips around the whole top of a car and then roll around on wheels and run things over and jump over ramps and then spit out the car and become a drinks machine and start spitting cans out as projectiles. And so it's kind of riotous, childlike Nintendo fun. Very simplistic. There is an easy mode and some kind of wild mode, so-called. I played it in the wild mode and found it to be incredibly easy. Maybe that changes as the game progresses. This is just the demo. So that's an interesting one. After playing the demo, I was left thinking, I'm not sure if I need any more of that game or if that was enough of it. So I'm just going to wait and see. It's one of those Nintendo games that it might be nice to have on a Switch and play for 10 or 20 minutes now and then, if you know what I mean. I doubt it would ever be a main game or anything like that for me, but it seems like a lot of fun. I mean, it was a lot of fun. It was really a good time, and I smiled a lot while I was playing it. And that's something that always happens with Nintendo games. If ever I play a Mario game or a Pikmin game, I just spend the whole time smiling at the screen because they're so joyful. And this is another joyful Nintendo game that is just built to entertain you and delight you. And as such, it does what it says on the tin. I will say that juxtaposing a happy pink blob and this kind of video game mole music, this chirpy music, against the intrinsic melancholy of an overgrown cityscape where everyone is dead and gone, and it's been rewilded, is strange. I got some cognitive dissonance at that, to be running through a broken city as a happy pink blob with happy music. It was a strange melancholic / cheerful combination that kind of did a number on me a little bit. But, you know, that is what it is. It's explained away in the game as being an alien planet, but they've clearly just taken the aesthetic that you see from Last of Us 2's Seattle, basically, and made a cartoon version of it for some reason. Maybe an attempt to try and bring Kirby into the zeitgeist in more ways than one. That's Kirby and the Forgotten Land. Maybe I'll pick it up. We'll see. I also got a couple new codes. I got a code for Weird West, a cool top-down, wastelandy sort of. They call it an immersive sim where you can basically do anything you want in this world. You can talk to the sheriff, you can kill the sheriff, you can rob the sheriff, you can lock up the sheriff, you can do anything, and the game will account for your actions and keep you on the path. So it's a game with a lot of freedom of choice. And I discovered that pretty quickly. I mean, it's under embargo, so I can't go into it much. It is coming to Game Pass. There has been some gameplay revealed, so I'm not sharing any state secrets. You can actually watch gameplay from Weird West on YouTube. I've been looking forward to this one, and I will just say that I have enjoyed very much what I've played. I played an hour and a half of it, and that was a first session, so it wasn't like, you switch it on, play for 20 minutes, turn it off, try something else. I actually had a good long session with Weird West. Definitely going to play more of it. You're definitely going to be hearing more about it on the podcast. I also got a code for Ghostwire Tokyo, the new Bethesda-published game that we've seen a lot of in PlayStation State of Plays. It was in the PS5, in one of the PS5 presentations. And so as such, I was thinking, oh, great, this is like a Japanese horror adventure game for the PS5. It's going to be a next-gen thriller, and I was really looking forward to seeing another big-budget, high-sheen next-gen arrival on the PS5. And it's been much touted, so high expectations for it. I was very surprised when I started it by the look and the feel of the game. It feels old right off the bat. It feels a little bit like a Valve game. Something about the 3D feels kind of light. The way that it's rendered is really crisp and sharp in a way that feels a little bit old somehow. It's like Portal, Half-Life 2, Subliminal, if you've played that one. It's more that school of graphics than it is next-gen, or rather current-gen games that we've gotten used to now, or modern games even, like the Jedi Fallen Order onwards. Graphics took a bit of a leap, something with the motion capturing and texturing, the way that things were being done, got a certain look that is what I consider to be contemporary. Ghostwire Tokyo does not have that look. Also, it loads a lot. There are lots of fade to blacks. For example, if you open the door of a building, fade to black, fade back inside the building. It's not seamless. It is covered in seams. And that was a little bit jarring too. I think after playing something like Forbidden West or, Cyberpunk, where you drive around, there's never a loading screen in the entire game pretty much, and very few cutscenes. It's all about the experience, the open world, the sprawling land before you, and you just going and doing your thing. This one is very, very choppy, at least in the opening 2.5 hours that I've played so far. Loads of cutscene, loads of dialogue, loads of odd lore, and this strangely last-gen or before look to the graphics. I was thinking about it in terms of comparing it to the original BioShock in terms of how it looks. It seems like about that level to me, just really, really surprising. But once I had gotten used to the fact that it's not what I was expecting in that kind of PS5 blockbuster sense, it's actually quite a fun game under there. Despite all of the choppiness and the loading and the the retro feel to the 3D of it all. It's a first-person shooter in a strange way, in that you blast magic bolts out of your hands. It is a supernatural story in which Shibuya has been taken over by demons, and you're a strange, half-dead person who has been half-possessed, and you have a voice in your head that is trying to get you to do stuff, but you are still, inconveniently for that voice, alive and kicking and trying to hang on to your body, that this possessing force wants to take over to combat the forces of evil. And so you end up with this this passenger in your mind who talks to you. It's very much based on Japanese spirituality. There's lots of kind of hand signaling. There's lots of graceful moves and drawing out symbols in the air that will then have a magical effect and cleanse something. There's like a mishmash of cartoonish Japanese traditions in there. You'll find like ghost shibas running around that you can pat and feed. You'll find cat shopkeepers that are floating in the air. You'll find sad ghosts that want you to help them move over to the other side, and you have to go and do a little task for them in the side quests. And you are tasked with staying alive, with saving your sister who has been kidnapped by some kind of demon lord, and with figuring out what the hell's going on in Shibuya, in ghostly Shibuya, which is full of dark spirits that you have to kill. You can stealth them, or you can shoot them with your magic or with your bow. It's first person. And it's got a streak of Japanese craziness to it, if you know what I mean. It's got that surrealism and humor mixed with kind of gleeful, creepy stuff. It's set in Shibuya, so you can see all the glittering towers around you. You can hear all of the crazy sounds around you. It's all set at night. There's lots of neon. There's lots of drinks machines everywhere. There's lots of bikes everywhere and crashed cars everywhere. So I don't know, it's been an interesting one. I've been on a little journey with that one in those first 2.5 hours. I spent the first hour kind of hate playing it, and then I actually got into the mood of it a little bit, started to understand the humor. It stopped being just a constant cutscene and actually let me play the game, and I started to enjoy it. Lots of markers appeared on the map. And so if that gameplay loop does start appealing to me, as I think it is starting to do, I am in the world for open. I'm in the mood for open worlds lately. After Horizon and after Cyberpunk, I don't know. I'm just in my stride with playing big games, running around maps, having fun, seeing a world and progressing through a story. And so I might see how I get on with Ghostwire Tokyo. I might come back and talk about it again. I would say that for what it looks to be, that price feels steep. It is a full price £60 game with an £80 deluxe edition. But from what I'm seeing here, that's a bit too much for me. Looks like a £40 game or something. I'm not quite getting the disparity between the marketing for this game and the price point for this game and the PS5 push for this game and what I'm actually seeing on my screen. But that's Ghostwire Tokyo. I also got a code for A Memoir Blue. I'll be adding that one to the reviews list. That's the new light, short, indie game from Annapurna Interactive. Haven't tried it yet, don't know much about it, but I will play anything by Annapurna, and so I sought that one out. And the final game I'm going to mention is West of Dead. It's not a new game, but over in the podcast's Discord, which has got a little bit busier of late, we had a few new patrons sign up off the back of the 100th episode, which was very, very gratifying for me to know that people were listening and felt like joining in with supporting the show. So over on the Discord, where everyone gathers who are patrons of the show to chat every day and to share what they're playing, we had a thread about the top 5 art styles, and we got some great lists. Lots of people were mentioning Hollow Knight. Lots of people were mentioning Sable. I put mine there and picked a few games like Sayonara Wild Hearts and Hyper Light Drifter. And everyone's posting screenshots, and it's just the most beautiful, like, torrent of screenshots of all different kinds of games that have really distinctive art styles. And there were a few that came up amongst all of these gems, like the Sables, the Limbos, the Insides, and all that kind of thing, that I'd never played before. West of Dead, I don't think I'd even heard of. A Creature in the Well was another one that came up, which I'm going to be looking into. So I got hold of a copy of West of Dead, and this is a really fun game. This is a dark, line-drawn, isometric, roguelike shoot-'em-up. You play a kind of a Ghost Rider-ish cowboy who wakes up in a saloon in hell, having died. And there's an innkeeper there. There is a weird guy who gives you little hints, and out you go into the corridors of hell, where you'll find different rooms with different enemies in them, which you have to battle. You'll find power-up rooms where you get different weapons and different buffs, like increasing your offensive capability or increasing your health. Those are deleted when you die, and you start again, back in the saloon. So it's a pure roguelike. You have to battle your way through a series of rooms. At the end of the series, you travel on to the next level. I'm up to level 3 so far. It's taken me a couple of hours to get that far. That's 2 bosses in. And it's an interesting combat style. When you first come into a room, the room is dark, and you cannot shoot or see enemies in the dark. It's just black, inky black. And so you have to run around setting the lanterns. But as you set the lanterns, enemies appear, and they start shooting at you. So you have to set lanterns, then you have to dive behind cover. And it has a kind of a sticky cover system where if you are near a crate or a coffin, your character will crouch behind it automatically, which took a little bit of getting used to. From behind cover, you can shoot with the right stick and the 2 shoulder buttons, one for each weapon, a pistol and a rifle usually, or as things progress, different kinds of bleed weapons or shotguns or sawn-off shotguns or 6-shooters and things like that. They have different capabilities. And then you have to, it's basically twin-stick cover shooter. You hide behind cover, you take out the enemies. Sometimes they rush you, sometimes they throw bombs at you, and you have to dive out of the way of the blast radius or slide between cover. The cover is destructible, so after a couple of shots it vanishes and you are vulnerable again. There are bosses that are really intimidating. They're pretty big in pretty small spaces, so there's lots of dodging and managing the space. But it has this great art style. It's the reason that it was brought up in that Discord conversation, is the art style. And it's really, really cool. It's very dark. There are little puddles of light. You're running through these corridors. It looks like it's been a little bit sably in the way that it's digital, but it looks like it's been rendered to look like hand-drawn. And it must be in 3D, but for some reason, like the layer that's been put over it looks like 2D, so it looks like graphic novel-y. It's very cool the way it's been done. So I've done, I think, 5 or 6 runs. The first couple of runs I got my ass handed to me. 3 and 4 I got to the first boss, and then got past the first boss. 5 and 6 I've progressed through into the mines, which is the 3rd level. So I'm having fun with it. And thanks very much to everyone that recommended West of Dead in that Top 5s channel of our Discord. And I will take this opportunity to say that if that sounds like fun to you, to be recommending games, to be sharing games, to be answering top 5 questions, like what are your top 5 bosses ever? What are the 5 hardest games you've ever played? What are your top 5 games from your childhood? What are your top 5 games that are platformers? What are your top 5 art styles that you've seen in games? Then the Discord is a really fun place to be. You can come and join us by joining Patreon. You support the show that way, and you get extra episodes, and you get to hang out with other listeners of the show. If you're interested in joining up, it's patreon.com/gaminginthewild. We've had a few new people come and join recently. It's getting really lively and even more fun in that Discord channel, so I'd love you to come and join us. Patreon.com/gaminginthewild, if that's interesting to you. Thanks very much to all my existing patrons, and thanks to you if that sounds like something interesting to you. And with all of that said, let's move on to the featured game of the episode, Cyberpunk 2077. So, Cyberpunk 2077, it's an infamous game. It is by CD Projekt Red, the developers of The Witcher 3. It came out in 2020, in November. It was one of the most hyped games in history at that time, a little bit like the hype that we're getting now around Elden Ring. It sold very, very rapidly. In fact, Skyrim, Cyberpunk 2077, and now Elden Ring are amongst the fastest selling games in history. So it's a game that a lot of people were looking forward to. And it had a troubled launch. Journalists were only allowed to review the PC version, and it turned out that the console versions, and specifically the last-gen console versions for the Xbox One and the PS4, were unplayable. Even the next-gen version, which came out recently, still is full of bugs. The PC version was also full of bugs. If you go back and listen to reviews around the time that it did release, even people that liked it said, I hope that the bugs are patched out in the day one patch. There are people floating in the air. You can glitch through the ground. You can the game crashes. There are quest markers missing. It was a litany of bugs. It turned out that it had been released early. It wasn't ready when it was released. And so there's been a bit of an inquest into that over at CD Projekt Red. There's been a bit of a reckoning about that, and they've been patching it ever since. As I said in the intro, I was going to wait for the next-gen version to play it. So version 1.5 came out the end of last month and is here. So it's now a native PS5 version using all the horsepower of that console. And I thought, okay, now's the time to dive in. It was pretty well reviewed at the time, but I think I went back during my playthrough to listen to other people talking about it at the time, and there was a lot of generosity being extended to the game by reviewers. So I think that those review scores were expecting it to be cleaned up by the time it got to players. And I think that's always an interesting line, you know. If a journalist gets a bugged copy of a game pre-release, knowing there will be a day one patch, and so what they're playing isn't going to be what people play. That's what you assume. It's not what the gamers are going to get. They're going to get a better version. And so there was a lot of generosity being extended in those reviews, imagining that the bugs would be patched out. They weren't. Not much was patched out at all. It was a hot mess when it released. But now it seemed like the time to play it to me. And so I went in there just after I'd finished Horizon and I'd had done a bit of time with Elden Ring to get that out of my system. I thought, okay, now's the time for Cyberpunk. And in I went. And so what is it? It's an ambitious, cinematic sci-fi RPG. It is first person. It is set in the fantastically atmospheric environment of Night City. This is a West Coast American city that looks like a Neo-Tokyo nightmare. It's surrounded by desert, and you can explore all of that on road, riding motorbikes and driving cars. You can run around on foot. And it is a real RPG. Like, this game can be played in many different ways. And so I think a lot of people will play it as a first-person shooter. You'll constantly be picking up guns. But there are lots of skill trees that you can unlock, and that's something that I really liked about it and was surprised by. But it took quite a long time to realize the breadth of builds that you can have in Cyberpunk 2077, and it's much more than I expected. From all the footage that I'd seen, I expected it to be mostly about gunplay. It turns out that the hacking and stuff like that isn't an afterthought. It's actually a whole play style. You could get through this game hardly firing guns if you wanted to. You could be a hacker samurai and still get through the game just fine with a katana. But Night City is a big star of the show. It's dystopian. It seems like part Berlin, part LA. It's like the sex industry has gone mainstream. There are sort of smutty billboards all over the place. There are various red light districts in the city. The people that you see in the street are really, really interesting. They're all modified. Lots of people have machine limbs and machine prosthetics, and they have wearable technology and futuristic fashion. It is a true cyberpunk environment, and it is quite startlingly realized and sprawling and vast. So Night City is a big star of the show. There are vast glittering towers and tower blocks. There are concrete overpasses. There are canals and reservoirs. There are industrial areas. There are different kinds of industrial areas. There's the rundown, desolate, falling apart, barbed wire, dogs barking, broken glass kind of industrial area. And then there is the more corporate industrial area with large concrete walls and security patrols and things like that. There are commercial areas. There is like a kind of a Beverly Hills, Hollywood Hills kind of area with lots of millionaire houses. There is so much to see in this game. I've been playing for, I think, 70 hours now, and I'm still finding stuff I had no idea was there. It's very impressive, great to look at, really inspiring. I think I will go on the record and say that Night City is the best cityscape that I've ever played in a game. Every game tries to have a city. Every open world game tries their best to have a city, but it's often bit small, bit weird, bit underpopulated, bit sparse with these kind of automaton people doing their thing on street corners and stuff, and all a bit choreographed and stiff and empty. Night City is not that. It's a huge, bustling, populated city with things happening all around you all the time. It's just sparkling. It's fantastic. But as far as gameplay goes, you play V, a young mercenary who gets into the gangster life in Night City. There's a cool cinematic scripted opening where you meet this guy called Jackie Wells, and he's going to be your mentor for some of the game. And Jackie shows you the ropes of the Night City underworld in some really cool scripted first-person scenes. Something else that I noticed right off the bat with this game is that first-person suits this game really well. I'm more of a third-person game fan, and I shy away from first-person games a lot of the time. I played most of Fallout in third-person because that game lets you switch between. The only time that you can play in third-person in this game is that you have an option. Whilst driving, you can hit right on the D-pad and zoom out to a third-person close or third-person far perspective if you prefer to see the car, or you can be first-person when you're driving too and look through the windscreen. But first-person really suits this game. It was the right decision. And I've never seen it used in quite this way. People really fill space in this game. If you're talking to someone, they will come right up close to you and you'll see the pores of their skin. They'll stare you in the eye. They'll pace around the room. When they move their arms, their hand will come closer to your face. You feel like you are in space with people. And the architecture really suits it too. As you're driving through Night City, going under these huge concrete overpasses and driving over them and looking down on the rivers and the shanty towns and all the different neighborhoods of Night City, there is something about the way that the first-person perspective is employed in Cyberpunk 2077 that is really spectacular. And so the whole aesthetic offering, the whole graphical offering, the design and the visuals of this game, the characters and the characterizations are absolutely sparkling. It's a huge success visually and in terms of design, and the environment is absolutely thrilling. Night City is just a wonderful and gripping place to be. And the story really begins in this game. There's quite a long intro, so I don't want to spoil it for you if you are thinking of playing this game, because it's worth experiencing the story intro for yourself. But it's safe to say that V ends up with a sort of a cybernetic ghost in her mind. And this is the character that's played by Keanu. I'm sure that everyone has seen the trailers for this game and knows that Keanu Reeves plays a part in this game. He's a digital ghost that accompanies V on her journey. And there's something wrong with V. Keanu has ended up being uploaded in her mind somehow, and she has to stop him from taking over. And so there's a really interesting dynamic going on here where you'll see a digital version of Keanu just appear in your vision when you're in your house, when you're eating cereal, when you're driving. Keanu will suddenly be there and he'll suddenly be talking to you. And so he is like a main character, more so than V even. V is like a cipher, especially as it is first person. You don't see much of V. You get to design how V looks, you get to choose V's gender. There is a character creator, but you'll spend more time looking at Keanu and talking to him than you will thinking about V, despite the fact that the voice acting for V is very good. I played as a female V, and I really enjoyed the voice actor's work as V. It was pretty good stuff, but Keanu is really the main character of the game. And what you have to do here as you're progressing through this cool cyberpunk story of having a digital ghost in your mind, and trying to get rid of it and to find scientists and to find people that can help, you'll spend a lot of time hitting up enemy encampments. There are crime scenes all around the city that you can stop at and take care of in order to earn money. There are story missions where you will have to go and go to a base. You have to take out a base. You have to go in and get something. You have to go in and find someone. So there's a lot of combat in this game. And the combat is great. It's kick-ass combat, and there are many different ways to play. I started off playing with guns, with shotguns and pistols. And as an FPS, it's actually pretty enjoyable. You can use stealth to creep around and try and take out enemies by creeping up behind them. If another enemy finds a body, then they will all become alerted, so you can hide bodies in that Assassin's Creed kind of way. So you can play stealthy. I didn't usually last long as a stealth player. I tend not to last long as a stealth player. Generally, I alert my enemies way too fast, and so I was playing it as a shooter. And it was only quite late in the game that I realized you don't have to play it that way. The skill trees are vast in this game, and you can tailor your character to be all kinds of things. You can play with a club and be a blunt instrument street thug. You can play with blades and get up close and personal with those. You can play with hacks, and when you use your scan ability to look around, enemies are highlighted. There are security cameras that will alert enemies. You can hack those, you can turn them off, but you can also look through them and flick between the security system of a building. And when you scan enemies, you can upload viruses to them if your stats are high enough that will make their brain short circuit, that will make their gun burst into flames, that will make them rooted to the spot, that will make them forget that they are in combat. There are loads of different viruses that you can get, loads of different abilities that you can get. You need to unlock the levels that will allow you to use them, and you have to upgrade your cyberware, the chips in your mind that will allow you to use those abilities. And after the first 20 hours or so, when I was playing just with guns, I moved on to being pretty much a hacker. I would stealth into an enemy base, and I would take them out one by one without firing a bullet or lifting a finger. I would just be hacking my enemies' brains, and they would be collapsing. I then loot them. You get items of clothing, you get new weapons, you get sunglasses, boots, things with different armors, things with different looks. You get different clothing from different gangs. It's a really deep and complex RPG. You can put skill points into the 5 main attributes that are physical, hacking and cyber stuff, cool, which is like stealth stuff, intelligence, which affects other things. There's and I think there's one that is crafting and engineering that lets you unlock doors and hack computers for money and that sort of thing. And then inside each of those 5 main attributes, there is a large skill tree with like 20 abilities. And those two things are tied together. So if you upgrade your body to level 10, then you can power up all of the abilities that are inside of that skill tree. For example, brute force, health, recovery. You can level those things up to level 10, but no further. So you have to put your skill points into the tree that you are, into opening up the tree that you're most interested in developing, and then you can go into those different skill trees in that discipline and level up further. It is complicated and hard to explain, but it's a deep and complex leveling system that really lets you tailor your character the way that you would like them to be. And something that makes those choices consequential is that in one playthrough, you won't open up all of those skill trees, not even close. I think I was halfway through 3 of the 5 skill trees by the time I rolled credits. In Horizon Forbidden West, for example, you will open up the whole skill tree by the time you roll credits if you've been doing side quests. You will basically get everything, and so it takes down the role-playing aspect of the game. It's more, what would you like first? In Horizon, I wanted to be an archer and a warrior, and I ended up just cleaning out the things that I wasn't really using just to get the trophy or just to complete it. In Cyberpunk, it's not like that. You have to invest your skill points wisely because you're not going to see everything. And so the choices that you make and the playstyles that you choose are really consequential. And I think that gives it chops. That gives it chops as an RPG, There's more to it. Your choices matter and your playstyle matters. And I have to say that I really enjoyed going from being a gunslinger to being a hacker, to eventually getting these blades that pop out of your forearms and turning into this kind of maniac mantis slasher who would jump insane distances up to enemies and then pull them up on spikes. So it's super violent. There are loads of different ways to fight, and the combat is fun, fast and furious, and fierce. And I haven't played The Witcher 3, but it's legendary for its side content. And I think that that's really another aspect of Cyberpunk that shines. The moment-to-moment gameplay is really fun, whether you're buying things, whether you're breaking up robberies and doing these police intercom jobs where you can use your police scanner to go to map markers and break up crime, whether you're doing story missions, whether you're driving around the map, scanning graffiti, which you can do, and you get tarot readings based on the graffiti that you found. It's really, really fun. There's loads of things to do on the map. But the side content, the tailored character side content is really fun. And that's because the characters are great. There is really decent voice acting throughout. There is good facial animation, especially on key characters. It feels very much like there are 2 levels of characters. There are the main characters, and then there are kind of ambient characters that are just there. The main ones that you meet are very, very lifelike. They're really cool. They're really fun to get to know. They have personality. The script is good. Some of my favorites were, there's a client that you'll meet called Evelyn, who's a very classy nightclub owner and kind of gangland woman. And she looks a bit like Rachel from Blade Runner. She's got this cool, glamorous look to her. She was very, very engaging. There is a feminist hacker that she introduces you to who's kind of a punk called Judy Alvarez. And Evelyn and Judy both belong to a gang called the Mocks, this super cool girl gang that are kind of cleaning up the sex trade in Night City. You'll also meet some nomad clans. These are people that live out in the desert outside the city. And you'll meet someone called Panam Parker, who is this super cool nomad woman, an operative that you will meet. And you can go and do story quests with her too. You'll meet a renegade mafiosi security guard named Goro Takamura. He's like an older, like a Japanese bodyguard warrior from a past generation. He has like an honor system, and he's very different to the other sort of street rats and gang members that you'll meet with. Really interesting character. There is a gangland fixer named Dex, who is a little bit like Mr. Big from Pulp Fiction. Loads of really amazing, memorable characters. And they all have story arcs of their own. I completed the Judy Alvarez one. I really loved that one. Judy is on a mission to kind of clean up a bunch of strip clubs, basically, to stop the girls from being mistreated, and you can help her do that. And you get to know people as you are doing these side quests in a way that feels quite real for a game of this type. Like you deepen your relationship with them. And some of my favorite moments in this game were the car rides that come up during these side quests, where you'll talk to someone, they'll say, let's go. And you can choose whether you want to meet them there or ride with them. And if you ride with them in the car, you get into the car, you're looking through the windscreen, you can look to your left and see them driving, you can look to your right and see the cityscape passing by. And I loved these moments where you were just passively looking at Night City, not having to drive, just enjoying the ride. It felt like being a passenger on a road trip in real life, and that's something that I always like. And you can talk to the characters and just enjoy the car ride. You can hit circle after the dialogue has dried up to go straight to your next destination, but I just let them run. I just enjoyed the view, enjoyed hanging out in the car in this kind of intimate space of the inside of a car, driving with these characters from in the game. They were some of my favorite moments in the game. Driving around with Judy in the city, driving around with Panam in the desert. Some of the most memorable moments of the game for me. So those side quests are great. They really are. There's different levels of side quest out in the map as well. There are quite light, disposable tasks like those police radio tasks. And then there are jobs that you'll get from fixers. Each district of Night City is different. Each one has a different gang, and each one has a different fixer who kind of hires mercenaries like V to take care of things. And those special quest missions for the fixers are green exclamation marks on the map, and you never know what you're going to get when you go there. One of the ones that I just did was finding a car that was in the middle of a minefield and having to get the car out and take it to a garage. This was really fun. I'm quite charged up on my hacking abilities, so I was able to hack the mines and turn them off, and then use my scanner to see where I had turned them off and have a safe ride out of the minefield. Very satisfying. I think players that weren't doing the hacker style would have had a real problem with that one. They would have had to drive incredibly careful not to get blown up. But for me, it was easy, and that was very enjoyable. Another time, I met with a guy who was on death row and was coming out into the world to apologize to some of his victims. And for some reason, you end up getting tangled up with him as a job, and you have to drive around the city with him as he tries to make amends for what he's done and goes through an existential crisis. Another time it was a guy that wanted to kill someone. Sometimes they are assassinations, sometimes they are robberies, sometimes they are these really rich character quests that are some of the best stuff in the game. So the side quests are great. I think people that like The Witcher for that reason will find a lot to like in Cyberpunk as well. And the people that you're meeting throughout this time are just amazing. The gangs are incredible. My favorite was the mocks, the feminist punks who all look like crazy, like Tokyo supermodels with baseball bats and will just fuck you up if you look at them. There is a kind of a cyber psycho gang that have these red lights instead of eyes that are very fierce and grimy and gothy. There is a Japanese gang in Japantown who speak in Japanese and have very cool fashion and are kind of brutal, and they tend to be hackers and net runners. There are different gangs in different areas of the city. There's also the corporate gangs and the corrupt police that you'll encounter. It's just a constant flood of really cool stuff. There is so much in this game. The fashion is amazing. The architecture is amazing. It's absolutely stuffed with content. Like, they have done so much work on this game. And I know that I'm gushing with praise for it right now and have been for about half an hour. And I am going to get onto some of the bad stuff as well. But before I do, I just want to say that I had a really good time with this game. I played the story in 28 hours to roll credits. It helped me get through my flu. And then after I rolled credits, to my surprise, I found myself just dying to get back in there. And since then, have racked up 70 hours on the game. I've just been playing it late into the night, and I've just been obsessed with it. When I finish work, I will just eat something and then play Cyberpunk, and before I know it, it's 2 a.m. and time for bed. So I've had a great time with this game. But of course there are problems with it, and I guess I'm going to have to get into them. There are problems, there are bugs. The bugs remain. But I'm glad that I spoke about all the positive stuff first, because I really loved my time with this one. So seeing as there has been a next-gen patch for Cyberpunk 2077, I was expecting this to be a relaunch for the game, and according to people that played it first time around, it is unrecognizable from that first release. They haven't just been fixing bugs, but they've rebalanced the combat, they've redesigned the skill tree and the XP system, and there have been substantive changes to the game. But something that surprised me right off the bat was that on PS5, the game doesn't perform incredibly well. There is some pop-in. It looks like it's struggling to hit 60 frames in performance mode. It's sometimes slightly blurry. Something to do with the rendering means that, I don't know, it's just never really sharp, never really crisp, always a little bit soft on the edges, always a little bit of pop, always a little bit of something weird that is catching your eye, like the level of detail, or the fact that if you look into the distance in front of you, you can see that the wet road looks dry if you look far enough, or if you look to your left, you might see a pedestrian that's just frozen and they're standing a meter in the air. I would say that pretty much at all times, if you are looking for it, you could probably find something unusual going on visually. And that's in version 1.5, the next-gen version. And it's something that took me by surprise a little bit, because I've been playing Horizon, and that game is slick. There is hardly anything wrong with it. Very few glitches. Very well put together game. When I think back to talking about like seeing a bird fly into a cliffside in Horizon, I take it all back. Like it's almost flawless compared to Elden Ring, which is a bit of a technical mashup as well, and Cyberpunk, which has got a lot going on with it, a lot going wrong in this game. But I am going to talk about a few just general critiques before we get into the bugs. The bugs are kind of going to get a section of their own. I'm not going to list like every bug I saw, even though I did keep quite extensive notes just out of curiosity. But as far as the gameplay goes, the design and the general experience, I would also say there were a few other things that stuck out. One is that everyone in this world looks absolutely amazing. They have designer tattoos, they have shiny sheens on their skin, they have amazing hair, they have the best clothes you've ever seen. Apart from you, in this game I spent a lot of the time picking the things that had the highest armor, and they were almost always ugly as fuck, basically. Like I spent half the game looking like I was dressed out of a bargain bin army surplus store with baggy combats and a crap vest. And it started to get on my nerves after a while. I was like, I want to look cool like everyone else in this game. I want to get tattoos. I want to dress well and be a cyberpunk badass. But it's just not possible until very late game. I think 50 or 60 hours in, I found like a pair of sort of skin-tight leather leggings and like a hijab, a head covering, and some super cool kind of aviators and this shiny coat that was embossed. And I thought, okay, I finally got a good outfit. Like 50, 60 hours into the game, I spent my entire playthrough to credits looking like crap. So that's very confusing to me. I don't know why you can't, like visit a tattooist or customize your character or put the armor that you like on the clothes that you like the look of. I guess in the crafting system you can kind of do that, but if you put all of your points into crafting, you're going to be struggling in the combat and the more important aspects of the game. It's just a bit unbalanced and it feels a bit off. Another thing kind of half connected to this is that the upgrade system doesn't work very well. There are common, uncommon, rare, epic and legendary weapons. And if you have a legendary weapon that you've picked up earlier in the game that you really like, that is the end of a character arc, like someone gives you a sniper rifle or a really cool shotgun for completing a long series of quests, within half an hour you'll have picked up 10 common weapons from enemies that are leveling with you, and so that legendary weapon isn't good anymore, and you might as well not have it. And that felt very strange to me. It felt like a broken system. It didn't feel that the upgrade system meant that your legendary weapons could keep pace with basic weapons that you're picking up from enemies. And every enemy is dropping weapons and clothing. So yeah, the upgrades, the clothing, the weapon system, all of that is still a bit of a mess, even in this version of the game. Also in related to collectibles, there is a lot of text in this game. Like pretty much any room you go into has got a little data device, and when you pick it up, you get some text in a file. I looked at my unread texts because I just got sick of reading constantly. It was breaking up my gameplay to be in a pause menu for a minute reading text every 30 seconds or 2 minutes. So I just started ignoring them. And I had 290 unread texts in my file. So that's a lot of world building that I'm missing there because it's delivered in a boring way, basically. I think there is too much text. I'm not against text in games, but this was so much text so regularly. Sometimes you'll pick up 3 in one room in a combat encounter. And then when are you going to read that? Never. Another thing that was a bit off was the romance options in this game. You can romance characters. I was a female V, and so my options were like an ex-cop guy called Kerry, and then Judy the hacker. And I went with Judy the hacker. She was great. She's beautiful. She's charming. She's cool. She's strong. Super cool character, Judy Alvarez. And after you've jumped through an awful lot of quests and done an awful lot of favors and selected the right text options, which I looked up because honestly it's complicated, the things that you have to do and say in order to get successful romance outcomes with these characters. I was a bit disappointed by what happened afterwards. From what I understand, all of the romance options will culminate in a sex scene. This is a very horny game, by the way. There is a lot going on with strip clubs, red light districts, billboards with pornographic imagery on it, people running around in the streets in tiny hot pants with no tops on. It's like a super, super horny game. In a way that most games are not, I will say. Like sex and games is not paths that cross very often, but they really went there with this game. But anyway, in the romances, you'll get a sex scene, you'll enter a relationship with that character if you want to, but not much happens after that. For example, Judy Alvarez lets you then use her house as your house, gives you a key. You can stay over there. But every time you go back there, and Judy will text you, you'll get text from Judy saying, hey, I was just wondering if you wanted to come and have dinner, or like I'm going out with friends, what are you up to? And you'll get these texts, and that's kind of cute. But every time you go to Judy's place, she has 3 lines of dialogue, and that's it for the rest of the game. Just like a robot that is broken, like a cracked record. And so it was a bit disappointing that it's cool that you get texts from the romance partners, but having gone to, through 10, 20 hours of gameplay, getting to know these characters, it's a bummer that the culmination of the relationship is a sex scene, and that's it. And I mean, maybe that speaks to the fact that the game is designed with a teenage boy in mind, or something like that. But I have to say, I could have gone for some more advanced and deeper quest arcs and dialogue to go along with the fact that you've gone into a relationship with someone in this game. It would have been a cool addition to the game if the romance options were deeper and lasted longer than just culminating in that one sex scene and then fizzling out. It was a bit of a shame. So those are my critiques of the gameplay and the systems. I would say it's like it could be pulled into focus. Do you know what I mean? It's nothing disastrous, but systems that don't feel right, such as leveling up and picking things up, are things that could be changed. Those are still things that could be retuned. If you were able to, for example, if you power up a legendary weapon using components that you have to collect or buy, just give it more, make those power-ups, make the weapon more powerful, so that legendary weapon can keep pace with the trash shotguns and pistols that you're finding on regular enemies. That could be fixed easily. I think things like the text are harder. Like the storytelling could have been tied into gameplay more closely. That's hard to do now. But I mean, the romance option thing, that could be changed. The leveling system could be retuned. More customization options could be added to characters. In the 1.5 update, they did add apartments that you can buy, and you can make over those apartments. There are apartments for you to buy all over town. So as well as having cars and clothes and guns, you also can buy houses. And so they are deepening the relationship that you have with the city. But there could be more to work done on this to make it even better. And I hope that they do that. I hope that they keep working on this game because it really deserves it. You know what I mean? It's a great game, and I would love to see it at version 2.0 of Cyberpunk 2077 and see all of these issues addressed. And these aren't just issues that I've said as well. You know, as I've been looking around at threads, looking for help, and things like that, I found other people saying the same things. These are common opinions. And so CD Projekt Red must know of these opinions and these consensuses and wishes that people have for the game to develop further. So I hope that we see some of that stuff. And of course, I can't complete this review without talking about the bugs. There are still a lot of bugs in this game. I'm glad that I didn't play it upon release because there were so many bugs in my playthrough, very distracting. Bugs every half hour you're going to see something really, really eye-catching and noteworthy. And I'm not just talking about little cosmetic things like people floating or draw distances. I'm talking about different bugs. I'm talking about hard crashes. I've had 11 hard crashes. That comes out at one every 6 or 7 hours. But most of them were stacked in the back of the game. Like I didn't get any crashes until, 25 hours or something. Which makes me wonder if, as they are patching this game, they're going front to back or something, because the back part of the game was incredibly buggy compared to the front half of the game. I also had glitches with save data. Whenever the game would crash, I would get a conflict in the PlayStation dialogue saying that my console and my cloud versions of backup data were in conflict and I had to choose one. And this was very worrying. Nobody wants a corrupt save file on a game like this, and it was just worrying to have to resolve conflicting save data after every crash. In the early game, as soon as I started the game, actually, in the nomad perspective, I started as a nomad character out in the desert, drove out of the first room, and straight through a person. This was the first thing that happened to me in the game. I realized that I was surrounded by people that would fire on me if I fucked with them, but that while I was in my car, I was completely invisible to them and could drive through them. So I just sat there for, 5 minutes driving through people who were then saying, "I swear I heard something," as I, knocked over a lamppost right before their nose. And I was thinking, oh God, I was fearing the worst at that time. There were also those people floating in the air quite regularly in the early game. There are some slow walking sections where if you're with an NPC walking through a quest, they will walk ahead of you. You will start walking slowly behind them. I never like that mechanic in games. I don't like it when my speed and movement is taken away from me in a game, ever, really, apart from Journey, that one time when it was done well. But it's kind of broken. If you're walking slowly behind someone, suddenly the handbrake will come off and you'll rush past them. They will then stop behind you and wait for you to go behind them again, and then you'll start slow walking again. A small thing, but annoying. And listening to reviews from the 2020 original release of Cyberpunk, this was a known bug then. It's still a known bug now. Also, conversations. You will often get a 5 to 10 second pause whilst someone is just staring at you before they will click into motion and say their next line of dialogue. It didn't happen a lot, but when it did, it could make a 30-second conversation last 2 minutes. There were times when I restarted the game because the pause was so long. Sometimes I had a 20 to 30-second pause where the game was just frozen. If I restarted the game, I got it again, just had to wait. Then that character would start talking. Very strange. Little things like that seem like they should have been patched out by now. Hopefully they will be in the future. After I got into the city, I started noticing lots of pedestrians doing strange things. You'll see pedestrians walk into walls. You'll see pedestrians walking through each other, glitching over scenery, that kind of thing. So there's still a bit of that. When you summon your vehicle, it's more Sable than Elden Ring. And if you've played Sable, you'll know that if you whistle for your Simoon, your bike, it will or won't show up. Sometimes it will glitch into scenery. Sometimes it will park 50 meters away from you or 100 meters away from you. Sometimes it feels like actually waiting for an Uber. And that's what I've got in my notes here. Waiting for the car feels like waiting for an Uber. The streets are so complicated that your car gets lost. which is frustrating. It could just appear out of view and beep behind you, like in Assassin's Creed or in Horizon. Your car, your mount will just appear from stage left, no matter where you are. In Elden Ring, your horse will literally appear beneath you and suddenly you're riding. In this game, not so much. Your car will sometimes be 100 meters away, beeping at you, and you just have to walk there. Adds an extra minute onto your game, In the late game, there were more bugs, more frequent hard crashes, being reported for crimes for no reason whilst driving, more pauses in dialogue, couple of progress halting bugs in side quests that needed hard restarts for the game. My vehicle would sometimes stop as if it had hit something when there was nothing in front of it. The minimap would get confused, routing me through the city. Enemies started glitching around the world. So if you're in a gunfight and you drive away at top speed, the enemies would glitch along the road behind you. I think that's because at some point in the game, you will meet enemies that can move very, very fast, like Neo from the Matrix speed. But something went wrong with their movement and they would just glitch along behind you, even if you're driving at 100 kilometers an hour. I also got glitchy phone calls where people would call you and you get like a little video panel on the screen when you get a call. But sometimes people would call and say nothing and their face would just stay on the screen forever until I restarted the game. So there's still a lot of bugs in the game. Those are the main ones. The list is longer, but I think that's enough bug talk. You get the idea. It's sub-Skyrim janky, and I think that if you are the kind of person who cares about that kind of thing, if that's going to damage your immersion, frustrate you, ruin your experience based on your taste in games and your response when you see bugs in games, don't play it yet. Just wait for 2.0. If you are someone that doesn't mind a funny bug that laughs along with Skyrim when you have horses in the air and, dragons behaving weirdly and NPCs just limping around in their strange robotic way and all that kind of janky open world stuff, then you might not notice it that much. You do just have to work around it sometimes, and it's just part of the game. It did damage my experience to some degree. There were moments where I thought, I don't know if I'm going to come back to this one, but a day later, I would start the game again and I would just get sucked straight back into it. There are long periods where nothing goes wrong too. And it's just completely enjoyable. The story is cinematic in scope. This is amongst the most cinematic games that I've played, perhaps the most cinematic in the best city environment I've ever seen in a game. The side missions are brilliant. They are, Fallout 4 level good. The game reminds me of Fallout a lot, actually. There's a lot of killing people and taking all their stuff, having a full inventory, having to disassemble all the guns that you've just picked up. You then have elements that you can pour into powering up your gun mid-mission in a pause menu, which gave me strong Fallout 4 flashbacks. I think the first-person perspective with the looter-shooter stuff, the deep world-building, the engaging visual world in a broken city, even if in Fallout it's post-apocalypse. In Cyberpunk it's just dystopian. But all in all, if you like the Fallout games, you will probably adore Cyberpunk 2077. It is the Cyberpunk game of dreams, and it's a magnificent creation. All of that jank and bugs and flaws aside, it's just a fantastic game, and I loved every minute of it. I'm still playing it. I'm going to go for different endings. And that's not something that happens to me a lot. For example, after I got rolled credits on Horizon, I just kind of turned it off. I know I'm not going to go back into that one now. I've moved on, but Cyberpunk has just kept its hooks in me. It's kind of rare for me, and I think it's the sign of something pretty special. That's Cyberpunk 2077. So that's our episode. I hope you enjoyed that review of Cyberpunk 2077. It's a long one. I knew it was going to be. I had a lot to say about that game, thousands of words of notes to go through. I even skipped over some stuff just to try and keep it a reasonable length. It's a long time for anyone to listen to me talking, so well done if you got this far. Before the podcast ends, I would just like to say thank you to the two newest patrons of the show, Nicholas and soccrchik, who both joined after the 100th episode. Also thanks to Eric and Travis, who joined recently as well. And thanks to all of my existing patrons. If you would like to become a patron and join the Discord community and come and talk to us all, you can do so at patreon.com/gaminginthewild. I will put a link in the show notes if that is interesting to you. I'll be back next week with a new episode. Who knows what it will be about? I'm playing so many games right now. I have a Memoir Blue, I have Weird West, which the embargo will have lifted by this time next week. I'm also playing Ghostwire Tokyo, I'm playing West of Dead. I've got loads of different games going on at the moment, so I guess I'll see what takes hold from all of those different games that I'm playing and which one becomes my main game. If you would like to come and talk to me in the meantime, you can do so on Twitter at Gaming in the Wild. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitch. I have been thinking I might stream a bit lately. I know I say that a lot, but maybe after the Cyberpunk episode, I can stream just driving around the city a little bit and show off the game a little bit. If you'd like to talk to me on Twitter or check out videos or streams or anything like that, you can find Gaming in the Wild on any of those platforms. Thanks a lot for listening. Take care of yourselves and each other, and bye-bye for now.